Hold on a sec. First, the mandatory disclaimer. This video is not for those with rational minds and locked away hearts. If you think of yourself that way, you may want to skip the video. Otherwise, you risk losing several minutes of your precious life just to end up rolling your eyes and calling it nonsense. Okay, with the disclaimer out of the way, cue the music. On second thought, this video is exactly for those with rational minds and locked away hearts. Time to change that, baby. Some years ago, videos of both Gurudev and Sadhguru started appearing in my YouTube feed around the same time. I had no idea who they were, nor was I interested in yoga or Sanatan Dharma back then. Actually, I didn't even know what Sanatan Dharma was, but now I know that it wasn't just the YouTube algorithm suggesting their videos. Still, for a young European guy, seeing two elderly men with long beards and strange loose robes, always talking in front of large groups of people, it was strange to say the least. It took some getting used to, but the moment I gave them a chance and actually played their videos, it was a point of no return for me. I was so desperate back then that I was ready to do anything, even go away and become a Buddhist monk. That's no joke. I was seriously considering leaving everything behind and going to a Buddhist monastery for good. Even though I knew that wouldn't truly make me happy, I just didn't know what else to do. So that's how it started. Actually, it started with a meditation app. Life was tightening its grip on me, and I was losing my mental and emotional stability rapidly. I was no stranger to hardships, and I can't say I had a smooth life before that, but this was a completely new level of low. I was looking into different ways to regain some strength, somehow, when I stumbled across a guided meditation app. Without much thinking, I installed it and did my very first minute of meditation. I was such a mess back then that I could sit only for a minute before giving in to the chaos in my mind. Over the next couple of weeks, I slowly increased the time and eventually completed a 10-minute meditation. A big milestone for me, but the effect was small overall. Even though I'd feel some relief afterward, very quickly my mind would go back to all the pressing issues. I started meditating daily, or at least I tried to, while reading about Buddhism here and there. The Buddha's teaching did resonate with me, but deep inside I was still feeling that it didn't hit the right nerve. You know, that something deep inside of you can't really describe it. The nerve. Fast forward to the day I watched my first video of Sadhguru. The sheer wisdom that was coming out with every single sentence he uttered was hitting that nerve so hard. I still remember how I felt afterward, mind-blowing. Little did I know that the real blowing of my mind was yet to come. But there I was, sitting unmoving, which was almost impossible for me because of the mental diarrhea, as Sadhguru calls it, that I was going through, and I was just thinking about everything he said. And everything he said was so simple and understandable, yet so profound and eye-opening. Of course, I had to watch another video of him. But then I got too overwhelmed and my emotions took over. And that's when Gurudev's guided meditation popped up. I was lying on the floor, broken. The phone was right by my head. Maybe that didn't happen on the same day. I like to think it did, but looking back, I feel like they were competing to see who would get to me first. Haha. I may be laughing now, but at that moment I was in tears. You know those silent tears when you feel completely helpless and so defeated that even taking the next breath feels like a struggle? Still on the floor, I looked at the phone and convinced myself to get up. I sat and played the video. I listened to Gurudev's voice, not knowing I was about to have my life completely changed. I slowly opened my eyes after the video, which was almost double the time of my usual 10 minutes of meditation. I couldn't believe how fast the time flew by. It felt like just a few minutes, and I wondered how it was even possible to turn off like that. For some time, I completely switched off, and in that moment, those previously silent tears became the loudest ones I had ever experienced. Painful moments were still there, and they remained for a long time, but during those moments, I'd frequently receive reminders from the masters that I was not alone. And it wasn't just Sadhguru and Gurudev. Soon after watching their videos, I discovered Osho's videos, and Jiddu Krishnamurti's, and Thay from Plum Village. It was so easy for me to connect with their words because I was so thirsty to know. Even though I didn't know what I wanted to know, I just wanted to know. I remember one cold winter night in December. It was late in the evening, and I was walking through a forest on the outskirts of my town. I was alone, and there were barely any lights visible. Desperation just wouldn't leave, no matter what I tried. As I walked down a narrow trail covered with a thin layer of snow, Osho's sentence echoed inside my head. Just hearing his soft and soothing voice was like a gentle whisper of sunlight, warming me from the inside in the surrounding darkness. When I think back now, it was so beautiful. Painful, yet beautiful. Tell me, how can one remain indifferent to Osho's most charming smile, Krishnamurti's sheer bravery and dispassion, Thay's humility and overpowering greatness? How? It doesn't matter what religion or background you come from. We should all remember that it takes a wise man to discover a wise man. As wisdom slowly sprouts within you, you begin to recognize it in everyone and everything. For me, it was impossible to stay immune to their hearts, which knew nothing but love and compassion. Even today, once I'm done with my practices, I thank each one of them and all other great masters of the present and the past. Not a day goes by without showing appreciation for wisdom and all its messengers, living and past. But I understand that from a practical point of view, it's easier to stay with just one master. Even Gurudev says, respect everyone, but follow only one. And Sadhguru is no different. He jokes about spiritual shopping and how one should not go looking here and there. But then you have this crazy dude over here who goes against both of his gurus just to be able to be with them. I like to say they're stuck with me. Of course, I say this only when I'm talking to myself. Plus, now I have not one, but two gurus to blame and complain to whenever my life starts going downhill. Sadhguru often says that devotees look like mad people to others, and now I know where my madness has come from my whole life. Not only did I look mad and weird to everyone growing up, and this only increased in my adult life, but not being understood by my family and friends made me feel so lonely and isolated. But then, when I unknowingly started walking the spiritual path, once I began to learn what that means, I thought, finally, there is someone who gets me. At last, this crazy sheep found its long-lost flock, only to realize that this sheep is still a black sheep in a flock of white sheep. Even among people crazy in love, my craziness had to stand out. Every time I shared with anyone that I follow two gurus, I'd get, "Oh no, you can't have two gurus. You have to pick one." I spent my whole life nurturing my craziness. Now was not the time to normalize it, but to ramp it up. And that's what I did. I decided to divide my body in two. Mentally, not physically, just to be clear. My left side of the body, Ada, belongs to one, and my Pingala, the right side, belongs to the other. But I didn't stop there. I carry their lotus feet on my shoulders all the time, everywhere I go. Gurudev's foot in his white sock rests on one shoulder, while Sadhguru's bare foot with the copper anklet sits on the other. Didn't I warn you that this video would be hard to digest even for those who already consider themselves crazy? But why stop here? It's not really a choice. At least it's not in my hands. Not anymore. In the beginning for me, Gurudev was a source of meditation and love, while wisdom and kindness were things I associated with Sadhguru. But then, as time went by, it became the other way around, only to mix it all up again. And now they are everything, everywhere, all at once. To put it another way, it's no longer about my intellect and emotions. It goes beyond that, and that beyond is truly beyond my control. Yes, brace yourselves for another episode of craziness. Whenever they grace me with their presence, most of the time I can tell who is there. I don't know what I have done to be blessed in this way, to be touched by their divine love, but whether you think this is all made up in my mind or not, their presence is subtle. Even when they dance, they do it so differently. When Gurudev dances, his movements are rhythmic and gentle, very much like how we see gopis dance today. This is why I usually imagine Krishna and Radha dancing in the forest, deep into the night. On the other hand, Sadhguru is intense and wild even in his dance. In one of his interviews at the Mahakumbh Mela, he jokingly confirms that he is a Naga Sadhu. Let me tell you, even though he said it with a smile, he really meant it. For those not familiar with the term, in yogic traditions, Naga Sadhus are associated with snakes. Take that as you wish. So for me, there is no internal conflict. If there ever was one, it has settled now. But what is unsettling is the growing division between Gurudev's devotees and Sadhguru's devotees, and that's the main reason I'm stepping out of my comfort zone like never before to create this video. For someone who never spoke about any of this with anyone, and who spends most of his time by himself, this video is a huge step into uncharted waters. It is the first and also the last video of this kind I will ever make, because if you think this is nonsense, then any follow-up video will feel the same. On the other hand, if it makes you think and look more deeply, then it served its purpose, and if there's still some confusion, you can always come back and rewatch. My YouTube analytics will also be thankful. Back to the external conflict. Instead of debating who said what and who did what, let's talk about Leela. A Sanskrit word meaning divine play. Leela is understood as the playful expression of the divine. The whole universe is a play and display of the same consciousness. One consciousness manifested in many forms, with the guru being its highest expression. Naturally, a guru will be playful. And being playful doesn't always mean playing by the rules. I believe there was once a little blue boy who didn't play by the rules, who stole butter overnight just to keep the whole village on their toes and add some spice to life. Why would gurus today be any different? Shouldn't they have a little challenge and play between them? Their goal is ultimately to push you to the point where you just want to let go of everything and surrender, and confusion is often fertile ground for conflict. But instead of clarifying it, let me add more fuel to the fire. One of the biggest conflicting points is that Sadhguru speaks of Shiva as Adiyogi, the first yogi who imparted yogic science to the 7 sages, the 7 Saptarishis. But Gurudev speaks of Shiva as a principle, claiming that he cannot be a man or the first yogi. because consciousness has no beginning and no end. To deepen the confusion, there's another way to look at it. It cannot be a coincidence that there were 7 Saptarishis representing the 7 chakras, and that Shiva or Adiyogi represents the all-pervading universal consciousness. Think about it for a moment, but don't rush to pick a side. Why do you have to pick one side, or one truth? As long as you live in duality, truth will never stand alone. It was never about interpretation, but about growing in wisdom and perception, so you can go beyond the meaning of it altogether. Only then does confusion disappear. But in the meantime, it's fine to be confused, which is why it's probably better to have only one guru, one source of confusion. Unless you're a bit crazy, then you know what to do. It always moves me deeply to remember Swami Vivekananda and his final moments. Lying peacefully, holding his rosary, repeating his guru's name quietly. He knew what was coming, and he chose to remain with the only truth he had ever known, his guru. Instead of pointing out differences, the focus is always the guru, and both Gurudev and Sadhguru say, Guru is not a person, Guru is a device, an energy. There can be only one truth, but many rules. Play by the rules, break the rules, and break the boundaries. Boundaries of the rational and irrational. Reconcile the two. Merge them in unity. Guru makes you cry. Tears of gratitude, of love and beauty. Tears of emptiness,